When John D. Rockefeller died in 1937, the world thought an empire had ended. But in truth, it had only just begun. The oil stopped pumping from his hands, but not from his systems. His body returned to the earth, yet his wealth, and the mind that created it, still governs how fortunes are built to this very day. How does one man's belief system survive death? How can a human life end, while the machinery of his wealth continues to multiply, untouched by time, by presidents, even by collapse? The secret isn't in oil. It's in psychology. Because Rockefeller didn't just build Standard Oil. He built a mental framework, one that turned faith into finance, fear into structure, and control into power. This is the secret behind Rockefeller's wealth that won't die. Today, we chase new empires, digital ones, crypto ones, attention-driven ones. But every single fortune that lasts follows a psychological blueprint first written by men like Rockefeller. He wasn't born into wealth. He was born into scarcity, into sermons about morality and restraint, into a world where pennies mattered more than pride. And that's where the paradox begins, because his faith taught humility, but his fear of scarcity taught domination. Rockefeller's wealth wasn't luck. It was order, divine order, applied to capitalism. He believed that if he could master chaos, if every dollar had purpose, if every drop of oil had a destination, he could master life itself. And in that pursuit, he discovered a truth most of us still ignore today: wealth isn't the reward for ambition. It's the consequence of control. Born in 1839 in rural New York, John D. Rockefeller's first lessons weren't about business. They were about survival. His father was a traveling con artist. His mother, a devout Baptist who preached thrift and morality. From one parent, he learned manipulation. From the other, discipline. And somewhere between those two extremes, Rockefeller made a decision that would shape his life. "If I can control numbers," he once said, "I can control my world." At 16, while others played, he saved. While others spent, he recorded. He called money my servant. And that psychological distance, between emotion and wealth, would become his first real advantage. By the time Rockefeller entered the oil business in his 20s, the world was chaos. The industry was lawless, fires, fraud, and fortune seekers chasing luck. But Rockefeller didn't chase. He calculated. He studied inefficiency like a scientist. He measured, standardized, and crushed randomness out of every drop of oil. Soon, Standard Oil became not just a company, but a living organism. It refined not only petroleum, but process. Every employee, every delivery, every price, controlled. He once said, "I believe in the dignity of labor, but not in waste." And under that creed, Rockefeller built something terrifying: a system that rewarded order more than innovation. Profit over pride. By the 1880s, he controlled over 90% of America's oil. And for the first time in history, one man's psychological obsession became the backbone of an entire economy. But every empire born from control eventually meets its shadow: rebellion. For decades, Rockefeller's empire had ruled quietly, faceless, efficient, unstoppable. But power without transparency always breeds resentment. By the turn of the century, Standard Oil wasn't just a company. It was a symbol of greed, domination, and the fear that one man could control the world's lifeblood. Journalists like Ida Tarbell, the daughter of a small oilman ruined by Standard Oil, began publishing exposés that captured the nation's imagination. Her writing peeled back the layers of Rockefeller's empire, exposing its secret discounts, its ruthless acquisitions, its quiet manipulations of railroads and markets. She called him the octopus. A creature with arms in every direction, suffocating competition, squeezing fairness, and swallowing independence whole. Politicians called him dangerous. Preachers called him soulless. And yet, Rockefeller himself never raised his voice. He didn't need to fight. He had already won the psychological war, the war of structure. Even as the public despised him, his focus never wavered. He didn't react emotionally. He reorganized logically. When the US government finally stepped in, with President Theodore Roosevelt's trust-busting campaign, it wasn't a surprise. It was math catching up to morality. In 1911, the Supreme Court declared Standard Oil a monopoly and ordered it broken apart. 34 companies, Exxon, Chevron, Mobil, Amoco, fragments of a fallen giant. For most men, that would have been the end of a dynasty. For Rockefeller, it was an equation fulfilled. Because while the empire was divided, Rockefeller still owned the shares. He had structured his control so deeply into the DNA of these new companies that when their stock prices rose, his fortune multiplied. He lost the monopoly but gained the market. He traded direct power for perpetual profit. And in that quiet walk away from judgment lies one of the most powerful psychological truths about wealth: real power isn't ownership. It's design. Because Rockefeller hadn't just built wealth. He had built systems. Systems that could operate without him. Systems that obeyed the psychology of order, even when their creator was gone. He turned his fall into multiplication. And that, more than anything, is the mark of real wealth, when destruction itself becomes your next investment. Where most see loss, the wealthy see leverage. When Rockefeller retired, his obsession shifted from control to correction. He began to see money not as proof of success, but as a test of morality. His philanthropy built the University of Chicago, the Rockefeller Foundation, and public health institutions across the world. He spent his final years not chasing profit, but legacy. He once wrote, "The man who dies rich dies disgraced." For him, giving wasn't generosity. It was purification. A way to balance the scales between greed and grace. And that duality, the belief that wealth is both a burden and a blessing, still defines how we think about success today. So, what does Rockefeller's story teach us? Not about money, but about the mind. It shows that wealth isn't born from greed. It's born from pattern recognition. He recognized chaos where others saw opportunity. He turned anxiety into order. Fear into control. Control into compounding. But here's the psychological paradox: the same traits that built his empire, discipline, austerity, control, are also the ones that nearly destroyed him. Because when wealth becomes your therapy for fear, it never feels like enough. And that's the curse of many wealthy minds even today. Modern Rockefeller minds still exist, in boardrooms, startups, and hedge funds. They chase control disguised as success. They buy comfort but not peace. The healthy version of Rockefeller's psychology is structure. The toxic version is obsession. And that's why understanding this story matters. Because mastering money begins not with income, but with introspection. From Rockefeller's life, 5 timeless principles emerge, each more psychological than financial. 1. Wealth isn't built, it's designed. He didn't chase opportunities. He designed systems. That's why his fortune survived his death. The actionable insight? Build wealth around structure, not speed. 2. The richest mindset is restraint. He lived simply, even as the richest man alive. While the world flaunted luxury, he tracked sense. The actionable insight? Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. 3. Money reveals character, not identity. His philanthropy wasn't for his image, it was atonement. The actionable insight? Let money amplify your values, not replace them. 4. Power decays without purpose. After the monopoly broke, he rebuilt through contribution. The actionable insight? Wealth without a mission is just accumulation. And 5. Legacy begins with systems. He died, but his system didn't. Standard Oil's fragments became the foundation of modern industry. The actionable insight? The ultimate form of wealth is continuity. Rockefeller's body died in 1937. But his system didn't. It lives in every corporate structure, every stock market, every idea that wealth must be controlled to be kept. He turned faith into finance, fear into focus, and control into continuity. And maybe that's why we still speak his name, not as a man, but as a mindset. If this changed how you see wealth, control, and legacy, subscribe to the Wealth Psychology channel, because sometimes understanding why people lose money is the key to learning how dynasties never do.